What up, gamers? I'm Aaron, and over the last month, you've changed your pick for main class at least 100 times, and now you're thinking about doing it again. But stop right there, because I've seen all kinds of players completely brick their season with a poorly planned reroll. So, if we're going down this path, let me help you navigate it safely. Because let's get real, the tuning on the Midnight Beta made no sense whatsoever. I mean, multiple times we would see the worst class in the game get nerfed even harder. And now, Blizzard has announced that there's going to be no tuning until the season is already underway. So, if at any point anyone has given you any main picking advice based on current tuning, then they have committed serious malpractice. Because sure, we could go off current tuning. I could tell you, play Arcane Mage, Demo Lock, or Guardian Druid. But in 2 weeks, when all of those get nerfed into the Shadow Realm, you will be right back here telling me to kill myself. Ideally, we'll avoid that. So, the true meta is actually insanely hard to predict this early. And that means that if you aren't 100% sure on knowing what you want to play, then you need to be able to do two things. The first one is identify if your pick for main is high risk. And the second one is identify how to give yourself an off-ramp, so if in the unfortunate event you do have to reroll, it doesn't set you 2 months behind. So let's start with determining if your main character is safe. What is a safe main character? Well, to me, a safe main character for Mythic Raid is one that's going to get you a lot of playtime and can be slotted in for most bosses. In terms of Mythic Plus, a safe main is one that's going to not have you waiting 45 minutes between dungeons until a group leader is foolish enough to take pity on you and give you an invite anyway. So, if you don't care about one or the other, then the decision is actually way easier. But you can usually tell if a main is safe by looking at 3 main characteristics, and that's going to be adaptability, availability, and history. Now, we're going to start with adaptability, because I think this is the most important one. And this is basically your spec's ability to be useful in different types of situations and in different states of balance tuning. For this, I really want you to think of balance tuning like rolling dice. Every patch, your spec rolls a die to see how it's tuned. Sometimes, you're gonna high roll, like Survival Hunter at the ends of Shadowlands. But unfortunately, sometimes you're gonna low roll, like Survival Hunter every other patch. Now, the safest classes here are going to be the ones who are able to roll multiple dice, whether that be through having multiple damage specs like a Warlock, or by having multiple different builds that are good in different scenarios. If you're playing a Warlock, and one of your specs is complete dog shit, you don't really have to worry about it, because it's pretty likely that one build for one of the 3 is above average. The classes that you see being good all the time are usually pretty high in this metric. I mean, take mages for example. You might think mages are always good because they're Blizzard's favorite, but that's only a small part of it. In reality, for most of their history, mage has had 3 different specs that do completely different things, and each one has tons of builds to specialize that even further. So when you're rolling 15 dice, it's pretty likely one of them is gonna high roll for any given scenario. This is why I will always tell you that it is very important when you main a class that you be willing to main the whole class, or at least the parts that play your role, because it gives you so much insurance against any one spec being completely ass. You know, if you want to say, I'm not a druid, I'm a feral druid, then you don't really get to complain when feral druid sucks for the 19th season in a row. Now, the second quality we're going to look at is availability, and this one is most important if you're into Mythic raiding. As most people know by now, a Mythic raid roster is like 90% predetermined by making sure you cover all of the raid buffs. Pretty much every class has a raid buff now, even if some of them are dog shit. But when you're looking at a group, and you're thinking about the class you want to play, you want to make sure that that group has room to support you playing that class. Let me give you an example. Let's say you want to play Priest, and nobody else wants to play Priest. Well then congratulations, you are in for every fight, and they couldn't bench you if they wanted to, because they need Power Word Fortitude. But on the other hand, let's say you want to play Rogue, and they've already got a kick-ass rogue. This guy's gonna be in for every fight, and he's got the poisons covered. So now, you go from the second rogue to the 3000th Valera-obsessed loser who is just begging to be put in on the next boss. Something like a Death Knight or a Warlock doesn't really suffer in this same way because even the 10th Death Knight still brings anti-magic zone, and a lot of fights even require 2 Warlocks for gateways. So ideally, a safe main is something that will still get you playtime even if you aren't the only player of your class, or something that has stackable utility that still adds value to any roster. Realistically, this doesn't matter too much for heroic rating because you've got 30 spots instead of 20, and realistically again, outside of Hall of Fame level rating, if you're just a good player who's good at his job and in the upper half of performing players, you'll get playtime no matter what you're playing. And the last thing you really want to consider is your class's history. We all know the meta staples who have been around forever, and it's usually a safe bet to assume that they will continue to be around. But with the ability prune in Midnight, all kinds of classes have had their primary role shifted around, or the way they do damage has changed. So maybe we will see new meta staples appear and old ones fall off. And I wouldn't really give too much credit to a class's history right now. But the one thing you do need to keep in mind is if you are going to be playing an abandoned spec. Because if you're something like a Survival Hunter, Feral Druid, or Windwalker, you'll probably still have a lot of problems. Blizzard has been ignoring them for the last 10 years, and I doubt they're going to start paying attention to you now. And one quick thing I forgot to mention about history is that you can kind of predict balance changes based on how they've acted towards balance in the past. For example, if you're playing a class that is completely broken today, you can pretty safely assume that it is going to get nerfed on the balance patch. Similarly, if your class is terrible right now, it'll probably get buffed. So if your class is on either end of the extreme, it could also be kind of high risk, whether that's because it's going to get too nerfed, or because it might just not get buffed. And while I wish I could just show you a graph that said, this main is safe and this one isn't, it's unfortunately not that simple. Because 1, we have no idea what could happen with tuning, and 2, it's so dependent on what your teammates are playing that one man's safe main is another man's unplayable garbage. But I can tell you one thing, and that's that if your goal is on the easier side, like 3k IO, ahead of the curve, or even late tier cutting edge, well, then any main is fine. And I'm not saying this in the having fun is most important type way. When you're with me, we're elitist assholes. And I'm saying that because by the end of this season, I'm gonna have you gaming so hard, you could carry a 12 key upside down with both hands tied behind your back. So make sure you subscribe. But let's talk about the scenario that we're all hoping doesn't happen. And that's that when tuning comes around, your previously thought safe main is now terrible. Like, Arms Warrior today terrible. And when that happens, your first thought is gonna be, the captain always goes down with the ship. But I promise you, playing something that's not dog shit will make your season 10 times better. But you can't just rip a reroll from nothing. That's going to make your season even worse, because while everyone else is scrambling to get ahead, you are voluntarily turning yourself into an undergeared piece of shit. So the best way we can counter this is by making sure that any potential reroll is as prepped as possible before it is ever needed. That's why you're going to want to spend your time right now, where just about nothing important is happening, leveling any potential swaps, hopefully doing some world quests on there, and if you have time, even a couple mythic zeros. But it's also really important to remember that for at least the first month of a season, the meta does not exist, and we are going to use that to our absolute advantage. It doesn't matter if you're playing a dogshit class, because everyone in the first few weeks is just inviting off of item level and M+ score. And you might be thinking, Aaron, that's not true. They watched a tier list video, and they're gonna exclude me because I'm low on the tier list. But you don't have to worry about that as much as you think you do. Because if they were good enough to take any information from a YouTube video whatsoever, they wouldn't need to be picky in their +7 key. So until it's absolutely certain that you are going to have to reroll, try to make sure that while playing your original main, you make time to do at least one key on any potential swaps each week. This way, when it's time to reroll, your character might have 4 or even 5 great bolts. Yeah, the items might be shitty, but I guarantee it's better than nothing. And because your shitty main has a much better shot at the start of the season than it does at the end of it, that means that you can make progress on your main that will make that reroll easier. Like I said, people are going to be looking at your M+ score, and in the past, I've gotten my terrible alts into places they have no right to be solely off of having a higher main score. So if I were rerolling early in the season, I would usually try to check on my main first if there was any easy IO in the queue, and then when you see that you're not going to get anything that night, go full swap to your main. And when you are playing on that ult, make sure you are abusing the shit out of any friends, guildies, co-workers, anyone you can get to queue with you. Even if it means playing with that one guy in your guild who never shuts the fuck up. Because those guys have loot hacks, and they will get every item you need to drop. And when they trade it to you, you will go from undergeared piece of shit to somewhat usable character very quick. And I get it, this might all seem pretty frightening. But don't worry, you're not going to have to worry about it. The odds your class is arms warrior level bad is microscopic. It really has only ever happened to arms warriors. So don't worry, your class is gonna kick ass, and you won't have to reroll. But now, you've got some tips on if that terrible situation ever does occur. It's like being prepared for a fire in your house. If you know how to stop, drop, and roll, you are 10 times better off than the guy who never learned it. So if you have any questions about whether or not your main is a safe pick, or you just want to let me know that my video was fucking useless, then feel free to leave a comment. I read every single one, and I'll be back at you very soon with another video. So until then, I'm Aaron, and thanks so much for your time. Peace.
My spec fucking sucks.